This video tutorial I will explain exception handling in Spring Boot. Here I have defined the class employee controller, which is REST controller, and it has a get employee method which accept employee ID. And to call this method, we have to send request to this URI, and HTTP method should be get. And here what I am doing is I am declaring employee name as null and checking the length. So this line will throw null pointer exception. We will run this application and see how the response is coming. I am starting this Spring Boot application in debug mode. Now I am going to send request to this URL and HTTP method is get. Click on send and request reached here. And employee name is null. So this line will throw null pointer exception. And here you can see we got the exception. And in Postman client, we got a response like this: timestamp, status, error, message, and path. Instead of this default error message, we want to return a custom error message. We will see how to do that. Here I have defined the class error message. It has three properties: error ID, error message, and timestamp. And error message constructor and getter and setter methods for these properties. Here I have defined the class employee exception handler, which extends response entity exception handler. In this class, I have applied controller advice annotation to handle the exception globally. And here it has handle any exception method, which accept exception object and web request object. In this method, I have applied exception handler annotation to handle any specific exception and return custom error message back to the client. And here I am creating error message with error code 101 and error message and the date, and return error message back to the caller. Here I have specified exception.class. So if any exception occurred, this method will be called. Now I am starting this application in debug mode. Click on send. And this line exception will occur, null pointer exception, and it came inside the employee exception handler class, inside handle any exception method. Here I am constructing error message and returns custom error response back to the client. And here we got the custom error response. Next we will see how to handle the specific exception. Here I have added handle null pointer exception to handle only null pointer exception. And in this method, I have applied exception handler annotation and value as null pointer exception. So if any null pointer exception occurred in the application, this method will be called. And it returns custom error message back to the caller. I am running this application in debug mode. Click on send. And request reached here. And here you can see it came inside the handle null pointer exception method. And here we got the custom error message. Next we will see how to throw and handle your own custom exception. Here I have defined the class employee service exception, which extends runtime exception, and it has one constructor which accept message. And in employee controller, I am throwing the employee service exception. And in employee exception handler class, I have added handle employee service exception. And in this method, I have applied exception handler annotation, and value I have specified as employee service exception dot class. So if any employee service exception happens, then this method will be called. I am running this Spring Boot application in debug mode. Click on send, and request reached here, and it is throwing employee service exception. And it came inside handle employee service exception. And returns custom error response back to the calling client. Here we got the custom error message. Next we will see how to catch more than one exception with one method. Here I have added handle specific exception which accept exception object and web request object. In this method, I have applied exception handler annotation, and value I have specified null pointer exception dot class and employee service exception dot class. In Spring Boot application, if null pointer exception happens or employee service exception happens, then this method will be called. So this method can handle null pointer exception and employee service exception. So I will comment other two methods which handles null pointer exception and employee service exception. Now I am starting the Spring Boot application in debug mode. Click on send, and request reached here, and it is throwing employee service exception. And it came inside handle specific exception. And here we got the custom error message. Next we will change the code to throw null pointer exception and see this handle specific exception method is called or not. Click on send, and request reached here, and it throws null pointer exception, and that came inside handle specific exception. Here we got the custom error message. You can get Java source code link for each video in the description section of the video. Here you can see the description section. Click on show more, and here you can see the Java source code links. Click on these links to get the Java source code.